Okay, guys, welcome back to Unit 1, Lesson 2. Today we're going to be solving absolute value equations and inequalities. So, hopefully, you remember some of this stuff from Algebra 1. The big thing is when we have an absolute value equation, like you can see, we are going to end up getting two answers for x. Okay, so I will show you how to do this as a refresher from Algebra 1. So what we need to do, the rules are, and I'm not big on writing down lots of rules. So if you want to look up rules on your own, please feel free to hit up the Google and or YouTube for more formal stuff. I'm more of a guide here. So we're going to solve the absolute value equation. The first thing we need to do is get the absolute value by itself. That 4, we got to get rid of that 4 before we worry about getting two answers here. So what we're going to do is easily divide both sides by 4 because that 4 is trying to multiply by the absolute value. Now, to give you a heads up, something extremely important here. Notice I did not say distribute the 4. You are never, ever, ever, ever allowed to distribute through an absolute value. It is not the same as parentheses. So we need to divide by 4, so it'll cancel on the left. On the right side of the equal sign, you do the math. 16 divided by 4 is 4. Now, this is the point where I consider when I say the absolute value is isolated. So now is the point where we want to get two different answers. So how do we do that? We're going to set up two different equations. The first one, we're just going to treat it as if the bars were not there. Of course, we would add 5 and we would say x is 9. But we need a second answer, so we go set up a second equation. X minus 5 equals negative 4. What did I do here that was different? Of course, again, I ignored the absolute value symbols, but notice the 4, the number not in the absolute value, got changed to a negative 4. So now I just go ahead and solve that. I add 5, so I say x is 1. So there are your two answers to the problem, 9 and 1. Okay, letter B. What should I do here? Well, again, let me tell you what not to do. Do not dare distribute that 2. Not allowed. We need to divide both sides by 2. So 12 divided by 2 gets my 6. Now the absolute value is isolated. So now I can go ahead and split into my two equations and get my two answers. So the first one, just ignore the absolute value bars and then solve it. We would add 5 to get 11 and then divide by 3. And I do like mixed numbers. I do not like those ugly improper fractions. So 3 goes in 11 3 times, for the 9, with a remainder of 2. And then let's do the other equation. Again, we need two answers here. So the other equation, what is the change we need to do? We need to make the 6 into a negative 6. Right there. The number that's not inside of the absolute value gets changed. So now we're going to solve. We're going to add 5. And then we're going to divide by 3. And we get our second answer, negative 1/3. Again, guys, if I go fast, I am doing it on purpose to save some time on the file, how big the file size is. So please make sure to pause and rewind as needed. Okay, what do we got to do first here? Well, I notice the absolute value is not isolated. We do not want that plus 7 there. We cannot split up yet into our two equations. So let's subtract that 7. So 3 minus 7 will get negative 4. Okay, now I want to alert you to something. We have to stop. We cannot get two answers here. We have a special case. We actually have no solutions. Why? Why do we write that? Why can't we split into two equations? Well, take a look right here. We learned, when you learned about absolute value, that you cannot, absolute value of something, you must always get a positive answer, but it's showing a -4, meaning there's nothing you can plug in for x that when you -3 and then take the absolute value of it, that you would get -4. It's physically impossible. If you think you can figure it out, good luck. All right, moving on. Okay, now next up, we're going to solve and graph the inequalities. It's going to be pretty similar to the equations. We're going to be splitting up into two problems and solving them. Now we can split this up right away. Let's do my first one. Because the absolute value is isolated, so I was able to go into solving right away. So of course, well, that's got to be 15, right? Add 5 to the 10. So there, that's done. Don't graph it yet, though. Now we want to move on to the other one. That's where it gets a little bit tricky. So for the other one, you're going to do two changes. I will highlight them for you. The two changes are you flip the symbol, inequality symbol, to point in the other direction. And just like above, we switch the 10 to a -10. The number that's not in the absolute value gets switched. So of course we would then add 5 to both sides. And we have w is greater than or equal to -5. Okay, so now that both of these are solved, we want to go ahead and we are going to graph them on the same number line. So make sure you're in numerical order. -5, then 15. Numerical order. They both have underlines, so that means they're both going to be closed circles. Now it shows, if you take a look here first, it shows that is less than or equal to 15, so it starts going to the left. And then this one is w is greater than or equal to -5. That starts going to the right. So the shading will meet in the middle. All right, it does not surpass, so answers to the problem are simply the numbers in between and including -5 and 15. Let's try another one. The first thing we need to do here is get rid of this 3. Do not distribute. We need to divide by 3. You're not allowed to distribute with absolute value. So we're working on isolating the absolute value. So we're dividing both sides by 3. 9 divided by 3 will get 3. And now the absolute value is isolated, so now we can go ahead and do our two problems. So our first one, we're just going to drop the absolute value bars. And let's solve it. Subtract 1. So we got x is greater than 1. And now we're going to do the second one. So what I do here, I did the two changes. I flip the symbol, and the 3 becomes a negative. And now I can solve that guy. Okay, they're both solved, so now I want to graph them on the same number line. So I got to be careful, make sure they're in numerical order. -2 to the left of 1. Now these two guys do not have underlines, so that remember that those are open circles. So we have an x is greater than 1. And we have an x is less than -2. So these guys were a little different than letter A. Sometimes the shading, such as in letter A, goes between the numbers. And in letter B, it goes away from the numbers. Okay, let's do one more, letter C. So what do we need to do? Well, we definitely need to first get the the absolute value by itself. So do I get rid of the 2 or the plus 6 first? Well, get rid of the 6 first. So let's subtract 6 from the 15. Okay, I'm saying it for a third time. Do not distribute the 2. Not allowed with absolute value. So your next step needs to be divide by 2. Okay, so now it's isolated. So now I want to go ahead and I can split into my 2 problems. The first one, just get rid of the absolute value. All right, I was just double checking something there. And get rid of the absolute value. And I'm going to solve. I'm going to add 5 to both sides. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is divide by 3. Bear with me here. I do not have a calculator on me, so I am going to have to do this by hand. Sorry, I'm wasting time here. 9.5 is 9.5. That'll be 19 over 6, which is 3 and 1/6. So y is greater than 3 and 1/6. Even I still got to do things by hand, guys. All right, now the second one I solve. Remember, what are your 2 changes going to be? Flip the symbol, change to a negative 4.5. So change and change. And then I solve. I'm gonna add 5. Let's just call that 1/2. It's 0.5, which is 1/2. And then you would divide by 3. I'm going to do this by hand because we never truly divide with fractions. Remember, we changed to multiply, so 1/2 divided by 3 is 1/2 times 1/3, which is 1/6. So y is less than 1/6. You guys should remember how to do this stuff, by the way. Now we are ready to graph on a number line. Now that both are solved, make sure they're in numerical order. It's 1/6, then 3 1/6. Neither of them have underlines, so they're both open circle. Means they're not included in the solutions. So we have a y is greater than 3 1/6, and y is less than 1/6. Okay, guys, that was it for the lesson. You guys should be working ahead on the homework right now. Be good.